We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Warning: the following program contains explicit language and mature content. It is not meant for the easily offended. So if you are an emotional pussy, please refrain from listening. Thank you and enjoy.
Welcome back. Another edition of the Words on Fire podcast. It's your boy Cujo, riding solo this time after a little 2-week hiatus due to just crazy ass schedules, just all kinds of crazy shit going on in my life. Remember, follow us again on the YouTube channel if you already are at the Words on Fire podcast, on the Words on Fire podcast on Instagram. We had an internet site, but I don't know how to use it, so I just deleted that shit. Yeah, also Spotify and all that other good stuff if you're hearing that in the audio. Today we have a very special guest. Now this lady is somebody I've been trying to get a hold of for a while because I want to get some information about certain things, certain topics. She goes by the name of Irene Armendariz-Jackson. She's running for, is it 16th? 15th?
Texas 16th.
Texas 16th on the Republican side, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. Irene, thank you first and foremost. Thank you for taking your time to come out here. I know it's been eventful to get this day to finally come on both ends. And so, again, I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate you actually coming out here and even, lending your voice to introduce yourself more to, people that might not have the opportunity to see or hear what you got to say. I think it's very important, especially since you're running for office, to get, see a different side of a person, because you always see. It's just like a new relationship. You always meet the representative first, then a year later you meet the actual person. It's already too damn late. So it's like, ugh. So here we like to peel back. As you know, we're not doing anything scripted because I don't like that. It's disingenuine.
Right.
Irene, tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me and not giving up and working with our crazy schedule.
Got to keep fighting.
Well, one of the things that I want people to understand is that I'm a native of El Paso, born and raised. My husband and I are going on 29 years of being married. Damn. And we raised 3 girls. Our oldest is married. Okay. She has 4 babies. So we're grandparents. And our middle one is 24. Wow. And she just graduated with her master's degree from Pepperdine. And tomorrow her and my husband leave to take her to law school. Oh. And then we have a little one. We have a 15-year-old. She's not so little, but she will always be little, right? The baby's always a baby. Yes. But my mom and dad still live in the same home where they raised me, which is in the Chalmont area. Okay. I went to Huey Elementary, Ross, and I went to Burgess, even though I was closer to Austin, 54 divides. And so I like to tell people because I tell them I went to Burgess and they look at me like, oh, okay. And I'm like, no, but I'm from the other side of the tracks.
I'm from the other Burgess.
Yes. I used to think that people that lived in the Burgess area were rich. Okay. Now my husband and I live there, and I realize, no, they're not rich because we're not rich.
But the times are different, though, because, El Paso it's crazy. And the thing I don't understand about El Paso, it's such a huge, beautiful city, but we're so small-town minded.
Absolutely.
What do you think? Well, why is that? Why do you think that our leadership has allowed us to keep that small town mentality?
Well, we're not going to put it on the leadership. We're all free thinking human beings, and we need to be aware of what's going on and be involved. Okay. And I tell this even to my Republican friends that we have over 60 years of Democrat control here in El Paso. Right. And can we say that we're better off? The truth is that we are worse off because people like Beto O'Rourke have been in office and Veronica Escobar, who I'm running against. Right. And so we can't say that unless you're in law enforcement or something to do with the government, then really there's no good paying jobs in El Paso. And why is that? There's a lot of powers that be on both sides of the aisle that like to control especially the labor here in El Paso.
Yep.
There's a very strong industry that moves El Paso, and that industry is construction. And I felt it at a very personal level because my dad, that's how he put bread and butter on our table.
Right.
But unfortunately, because of our proximity to Ciudad Juarez, a lot of illegal people come and underbid the jobs.
Right.
And so my dad had to leave months at a time. And he would leave my mom with 4 kids to go to either Midland or Odessa, with the
Right.
oil boom. Or he would go to California. He would go after the good paying work, which was
Right.
the same work. And he would tell us, I'm going to start my own company. Then he starts his own company, and he couldn't get ahead because he refused to hire illegals.
Right.
And my dad's from Mexico. My dad's from Torreon, Coahuila.
Okay.
And my mom's from Ciudad Juarez. So actually my first language is Spanish.
Spanish. You see, and that's something that's weird because I know a lot of people. Well, I guess it's portrayed that if you're Hispanic, right? Or I hate even saying Hispanic. That's some bullshit word. If you're Mexican or Mexican American, you should automatically be Democrat, right?
Right.
Because everybody says when we talk about illegal immigration and whatnot, everybody's like, oh well, we don't want those guys. Well, first of all, it's not that you don't like that race. It's the fact of the illegality of it.
Absolutely.
Right. It's
Absolutely.
not that, and it's fun. It's weird when you hear or when you see a person of color, I guess you could say, like such
You're
as
right.
us, actually say that the Republican, because the national view on Republicans they're all racist, right? Because
Right.
Trump was when he was in office. If you liked anything he said, then you're racist like him. You're racist by trade, by representation,
Absolutely.
guilty by the party.
By association, yes.
So how did you, being somebody who, like you said, your father was from Mexico, you are Mexican, your first language was Spanish, how did you become a Republican?
So it all started because I started being aware of the pro-life movement and what was going on in the abortion industry. And this happened during the George W. Bush era,
Okay.
the son. And so I started talking to my parents. I wasn't very involved, unfortunately, here in El Paso, within our Hispanic, Mexican American, whatever, the community here.
Right.
Voting is not a priority. A very small percentage of the population here in El Paso, and I'm talking about like 3%,
Okay.
actually decide and make decisions for the rest of us.
Right.
But it's on us. It's on us because until we get involved and we understand the issues and we know what we're voting for and who we're voting for,
Right.
we will continue this vicious cycle. So it started with the pro-life. Being a born-again Christian, I started paying attention to, wait a minute, the Democrats promote abortion all the time. And it wasn't even as crazy as it is right now.
Right.
I mean, before it was almost like a taboo to talk about it. It was hush hush. It was a private thing. Now they're out in the open screaming, what do they say? Yell, scream your abortion. And when we realize what an abortion is, that is the ultimate dehumanizing event that you could actually impose on a human being.
Okay.
I mean, when you dismember a baby in the womb,
Right.
this is a human being with legs, with a sensory. The nerves are formed within weeks of being in the pregnancy, in the gestation cycle, where they feel pain. You see, and now we have such an advanced technology. You see them smiling, crying, playing, running around when there's twins in the womb. You even see them playing with each other. So how can we say that it's a blob of cells? And how can we say that a woman has the authority over that body? They don't. They may have authority over their own body, which as a born again Christian, I don't even believe we have a authority over our own body. We actually are going to render an account to God of what we did with our body. But that's what got me started. And I started paying attention and I started telling my parents, hey, wait a minute. We can't vote this way because if we say that we're pro-life, this party does not support life.
Right.
And this is in our founding documents. You hear the Democrats falsely say that abortion is a constitutional right. On the contrary, our founding documents say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Number one is life. Why? Because if you don't have life, the other rights don't matter.
Right.
And so we are a people, and I'm talking about the Hispanic community, Mexican American. I know we have a lot of people like my parents who have come from Mexico and are now naturalized citizens. And we have a lot of first generation like myself who were born here, but we still have that Mexican culture tradition. How many people go to our baby showers?
A lot.
I had over 100 people
Everybody.
at my first baby shower. How can we say that we don't celebrate life,
Right.
that we don't value life? And so the Democrats have said for years, and we have allowed it. The other side, the opposition, has allowed it. I tell my Republican friends, and you know, like when I spoke with Attorney General Paxton, I said, "Where have you been?" Our people here in El Paso have been voting in a way because they've been seduced with lies to vote in that way, and then it turns around, and the only thing that happens to us is we are deeper in debt. Do you know that we are the city of the 5 largest cities in the nation? We are one of the ones that has the most debt. Because of the leadership that we have, we're already talking generations that are not going to be able to pay for this.
Right.
But so going back to the original question, what got me started, it was actually the pro-life and being aware, just in that alone, that the Democrats since then, not as crazy as they are now, but even since then, promoted the death of babies in the womb of their mothers.
So are you completely against any type of abortion, even if it's medically needed or so I know it's been, like I said, it was a huge hot topic when the Roe versus Wade overturned, and it's I guess it's different since I'm a guy. I'm not allowed to have an opinion since I'm a guy, so you know, naturally, I guess it depends, I guess, how I identify that day. That's what allows me to have an opinion. But my opinion has always been that of, I can't tell you what to do. At the end of the day, that person has to live with themselves, with their whatever opinion they have or whatever choices they make, right?
Right.
That's out of my hands. Whatever they do, they do. But there are some cases where it's medically needed to happen because it's been stated that if that doesn't happen, then the mom might not survive. Or it's been said that there's either some kind of, not deformity, but some kind of so the baby's going to have life-changing, you know, it's because it's missing certain chromosomes or something's going to happen where it's not going to be able to fulfill a full life, and you're automatically setting them up for failure. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, you just kind of unloaded a lot of stuff.
It's a lot.
I'll try to do one at a time.
Right.
First of all, let me ask you, do you fear God?
Well, I'm atheist.
Okay, so did you see the creation around us? There's a creator. So we didn't come from nothing.
Okay.
So there's a creator. And that creator created everything that's around us, including human beings. So let me ask you another question. If you're walking down the street and you see a mom, okay, not a dad, a mom, beating on their child senseless, where they're causing them harm and even death, will you stand on the platform of, I'm a man, that's the mom, and she has a right to do whatever she wants? Will you allow that child to be murdered in front of you?
I'm not, so on that case, if the mom is just whooping the kid's ass, whoop the kid's ass. I'm fine with that. I've got a lot of ass whippings myself. So, but if you're getting to a point where the kid's unconscious or there's bodily harm that's going to be a huge extent where there's going to be tragic events that happen, no, I cannot, as a guy, stand there and witness that and not do nothing.
So do you know what an abortion is?
From what little bit I'm able to be given the opportunity to read, because like I said, I'm a guy, so I'm not allowed to have opinion. It's just, from what I've seen, it is just the taking of what, I guess, depending who you speak to, is the taking it out of the clump of cells that are in you. You go in there, you basically cut off the life support of whatever the fetus that's in there, and then you take out whatever was already preformed.
Okay, so within days of a baby, of the fertilization of an egg, within days, the baby has nails, it has senses, it feels pain.
Okay.
And so what an abortion is, and this is very critical for everybody to understand, going back to what I asked you of if you would allow a mom to kill their child, would you allow her to get a chainsaw and cut his arm off right in front of you?
No.
Would you?
No.
Okay, so an abortion is a pair of pliers with a fancy medical name that go into the uterus, grab whatever they can first, which is usually the leg, and they pull with all their might.
Okay.
And they yank it off.
Okay.
You can go and watch a video called, is it The Moral Outcry? Silent Scream. Yes, The Silent Scream. And this is years ago when the sonograms started. They started using sonograms. An abortionist used a sonogram, thinking this is going to help me, I be able to perform the abortion and not cause any harm to the woman, and et cetera, et cetera. That was the last abortion he did. Why? Because he saw what is inside the mom. First of all, when the pair of pliers invade the uterus, it is scientifically proven that the baby pushes itself to the top of the uterus, trying to preserve its life.
Okay.
Then the adult holding the pair of pliers grabs the legs, pulls it, and of course the baby's no match.
Right.
Just like the child that we're talking about is no match for an adult. And they pull with all their might and they tear it off.
Okay.
This is a dismemberment. And the baby screams, but nobody hears it.
Right.
Then they go back in and they pull off another leg. The baby screams in pain again, but nobody hears it. And then they go after the arms.
Okay.
So now you have a leg and a torso. Then after that, the last thing they do is they separate the head from the torso. And they bring the torso out. Then they go back in. Now the head's floating inside the uterus. And they grab the head, and they squish it, spilling its brain to be able to let the head fit through the birth canal.
Okay.
That's an abortion. How can we, whatever your statistics, and I'm going to address that as well, whatever your statistics are, whether the mom's life depends on it, whatever the circumstances are, how can you justify dismembering a baby?
Right. Now, say, for example, like I said, of course, there's always going to be drastic cases to everything, right?
Right.
Now, saying the drastic
case.
Wait,
what is it? Are you saying the medical is the drastic case?
As far as for, say, for example, if a woman is a rape victim, right? Because that's the one that always comes up. A woman is a rape victim, and due to the rape, was produced child. In that case, are you still against the abortion for that
killing a baby,
right? For the fact that it was, it wasn't consensual conception, right? It was forcefully put upon her.
Well, for those listeners that do believe in God, I want you to understand that you have to ask yourself a question. Do you believe that God gives life? If you believe that God gives life, then we don't have the right to take it away. And we have a man and a woman coming together, and not every time that there is sexual intercourse does it produce a baby.
Right.
Why? Because there's something very important missing, and that's the soul.
Right.
And you have to ask yourself, when is the soul inserted into the human being? And for those of you that believe in God, and those of you that believe that Jesus was born from a virgin, you may have all the science, but if you don't have all the science and you don't have the soul, you don't have a baby.
Okay.
And we have to be realistic of how Jesus was conceived. Jesus was conceived without the biology per se, without a man and a woman having sexual relations.
Right.
So as a born again Christian, and biblically speaking, And referencing the Bible, Malachi 12:1b says that it is God who inserts the soul into a man.
Okay.
So when there's a conception, when at the moment of conception, when the sperm fertilizes the egg, and there's a baby growing, it's a baby because it's not going to grow into an elephant, right?
Right.
It's already a baby. It's just at a very early stage of development. Then the soul is already there because it's already a baby. It's already a baby. So I'm speaking to those that actually believe in God and that God created man and woman. Now to the rape victim, first of all, the statistics do not support that we need a blanket law to allow the killing of babies for it's actually, the statistic is very small. Now, am I saying that rape victims don't matter? Absolutely not. And we need to be understanding and compassionate and provide the help for the healing, because there is healing.
Right.
There is healing. But it never is the right choice to impart a death penalty on the most helpless and innocent of the victims of this whole situation. But if you look at the testimony of women who have been raped and have kept their baby, never have they regretted it.
Okay.
And for the human beings that are born that are a product of a rape, they are very happy to be alive.
Great.
And you ask the mom, do you see your rapist face in your child? And I've never heard one say yes. No, they say, I see my child and I love him and I'm thankful that they chose that I chose
That you
life.
chose to keep them.
Yes. And as a matter of fact, we see extreme cases where very close to home, where they have been raped, and then they produced a baby, they had the baby, and then they were never able to have any more children. And they love that child unconditional.
Right.
So now let's talk about the medical.
Okay.
Again, a very small statistic.
Right.
Let's realize that over 87% of the abortions are performed as an elective. And this is for those of you that believe in God, and for those of you that believe in Scripture. You know that in the times of the Old Testament, there was babies that were sacrificed to pagan gods, Moloch and Baal. And what they would do is they would have a born baby, and they would put fire inside this statue, a man-made statue, whom they ask for favor. And it's ridiculous, right? A man creates, it's like somebody created this water bottle.
Right.
And then I sit and bow and ask this water bottle for miracles.
Right.
It's ridiculous. And that's what they were doing. But then they would heat the belly of the god so much, and it had some flat hands. And for those of you that can't Google it so you can see what it looked like. And then they would put the baby on this flat hand and fry them to death. Offer them offering to these pagan gods as sacrifice for fertility. Ridiculous, right? You sacrifice your own baby to have more babies.
Kids, yeah.
And then also for the produce to have a good harvest. And so this sacrificing of babies and killing babies is nothing new to humanity.
Right.
How can the most advanced nation in the world, the most powerful nation in the world, say that a baby's life, because they're in a very early stage of their development, has no value?
Okay.
When we dehumanize and we kill the most innocent of our society, you and I don't stand a chance, because they never will stop. They will always find a reason why they can kill us. Now, Dr. Levantino, you can look him up. Please, everything that I say, please look it up.
Okay.
Dr. Levantino was an abortionist, and he performed, gosh, I always forget the number, whether it was 1,300 or 1,500.
Okay.
Now, the guy that actually used the sonogram machine, he actually performed tens of thousands of abortions, and he stopped cold turkey when he saw what was happening in the womb and what he was causing.
Okay.
And so the Dr. Levantino had no qualms in performing abortions. They could not conceive, and he has testified in Congress. So you can look him up and listen to his testimony. For those of you that say, follow the science,
Right.
he's a medical doctor. Follow the science. And so they couldn't conceive him and his wife, so they adopted a little girl. Soon after they adopt her, lo and behold, they get pregnant. Well, they loved their children.
Right.
And one day they were at a friend's house, and their daughters, the kids were playing in the front, and all of a sudden they hear the scream, they hear the screeching. Their adoptive daughter, was run over, and she died. She died in his arms. He said that the next abortion that he performed, because when you perform an abortion, it doesn't matter how little the baby is, you have a petri dish, and you have to account for every part of the body.
Okay.
Because if you don't account, and something stays within the mom, and it starts to rot,
It's toxic.
yes, and then the mom can die then. And so he said that for the first time after his daughter died, he saw the petri dish, and he started noticing it was a hand, and it was an arm, and it was a leg, and then he had the torso and the head, and he saw that baby he had just killed as a human being.
Okay.
He said never again did he perform an abortion. As a matter of fact, he now became a pro-lifer. And he says, going back to your question of medically needed,
Right.
there's situations where the baby needs to be not in the mom's body.
Right.
But he said after that, they provoke the baby to be born. The baby is born alive. Now, after that, whether the baby dies or lives is up to God. But they never have to kill the baby inside the womb. And he says, and it depends on the gestational stage the baby is in. And they've seen some real miracles where they just really didn't. I mean, this baby was maybe a month or 2 months old, and God chose for that baby to continue life, and they continue to live. Now, there's something wrong with everybody. Right before this, you said, are the headphones too
Right.
loud? And what did I say? I'm partly deaf.
Right.
And that's a trait that comes from my family. I don't have hearing aids, but Sonia's here, my right hand, and she knows she has to repeat things. If I turn around and laugh and smile, and chances are I didn't understand what she was saying. So she repeats it again. So who's going to determine tomorrow that if you're partly deaf, then you don't have the right to live?
Okay.
So we have, you were talking about the babies that come with a malformity or
Right.
an illness. Who has the right to decide that? Not only that, science does not support it, because most of the babies that the doctor says there's something wrong with them, you need to perform an abortion, are actually born 100% healthy. Had the moms and the dads made a decision to kill this baby, we wouldn't know.
Well, I know also, like, if you have a child that's a stillborn child,
Right.
and it's already, like you said, it's already passed away, but the pregnancy is still there because it's still in there. The only way you could get them out is by having an actual abortion.
Well, no, you actually. There's medicine that what it does is it contracts the uterus to actually go into labor.
Into labor. Okay.
That's not an abortion.
Okay. Now I know, like you said, you're a born again Christian.
Yes.
Do you think within politics there should be a separate
Separation of church and state?
You need to separate church and state.
Absolutely not.
Why is that?
First of all, our country was founded on biblical principles. If anybody that knows anything about government, in Isaiah 33:22, for those of you that have a Bible, and those of you that don't, look it up on your Google. Isaiah 33:22. It says that God is our King, our lawgiver, and our justice. What are those three things?
That's our creed or Creole for
It's our branches of government. The executive,
the judicial.
the judicial, which is the Supreme Court,
Right.
the executive, which is the president, and the lawgiver, which is Congress. At least it's supposed to be. And if you go to Washington, D.C., you can see the imprint of the early buildings and how at the Supreme Court you see Moses with the 10 Commandments. Why? Because every time Winston Churchill actually said it, and I love to hear it, share it with people, because he says, in order for there to be a government, there must be a people who want to be governed. Why do we have this need to be governed? Because we need parameters.
Right.
Any society that operates without parameters, or now we call them laws here in the United States, then there will always be those that take advantage
Right.
of the weaker. Going back to the abortion, that's exactly what's happening.
Right.
We're seeing the adults, the ones that are already born, like Reagan said, I see that everybody that has an opinion about killing babies or abortion have already been born.
Right, already alive.
And so what our foundation gives us, and especially when you read the farewell speech of George Washington, our first president, he very eloquently and very precise talks about the fact that if we ever take God out of our society, we will lose our morality.
Okay.
And so when I was taking my master's degree, I was asked a question, and it was, do you believe that we can legislate morality? And so let me ask you, can we legislate morality?
See, that's difficult because a lot of us should have a moral compass, right?
Correct.
Unfortunately, depending upon the society that you grow up in, or what you've seen to be not right and wrong, but beneficial and non-beneficial to your survival, it differs from person to person. You know what I mean? So not everybody, the majority of us have, all right, this is wrong, this is right. But then you have that skew,
right?
To where, well, is this really wrong? Because being brought up certain ways, that wasn't wrong when you were being brought up. You know what I mean? So it's kind of different, but as far as the question, I'd want to say it's difficult for me to answer that. I mean, I'd want to say you need. See, now I blanked on the question again. Sorry,
can we legislate morality? You
have parameters for morality, I guess. Just to say, make sure that you're doing that. You have wrong and right and wrong. Just like when you're talking about God and whatnot, like the 10 Commandments, right?
Right.
Those are suggestions of basically what you should and shouldn't do, right? And
well, not for Christians.
Oh no, for Catholics, right? Well, for Catholics,
I'm not a Catholic. I'm actually evangelical.
For Catholics, you have, if you do this, you're screwed. If you do that, you're screwed. So you know what I mean?
I don't think it says it like that, but okay.
But yeah, well, basically, if you break one of the commandments, then you're gonna burn in a biblical hell, and because if you have a child out of wedlock, then you're going against God's. One of the God's things that you have to have children within a marriage because of the procreation.
You definitely have never read the Bible, have you?
I've read. I'm not Christian, so.
But you've never read the Bible.
I've read enough to where I'm like, yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good with.
I don't think you have. I don't think you have read it. But going back to the original question, can we legislate morality? Yes, absolutely, we can legislate morality. It just depends on who is in power, is whose morality we're going to legislate. Okay. And we see that right now with the administration that we have right now. All the illegals that they're coming in.
Right.
It's immoral to impose into the society in the United States that funds the government, because if you take anything out of this conversation, understand this: the government doesn't have any money. There's no such thing as government funding.
Right. It's all us.
This
funding.
is us.
Right.
This is us. And why is it that we don't have a say on where the monies go? And right now, one hot topic amongst the Democrats is the bill that they proposed for veterans, right? That they say, how dare the Republicans not vote in favor of giving these veterans, my husband's a veteran, and not give them the money, those that worked in the tar pits and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But everybody that I have asked that has attacked me on this, I've asked them, have you read the bill?
Okay.
And they're like, because usually it's on social media. You can go on my social media, and I try to, when I answer, I don't try to attack. What I try to have people understand is bring knowledge to them, and then once you have the facts, then form an opinion out of the facts,
Right.
but not what the media does. And that's one of the reasons that I'm very thankful that you're giving me this opportunity, because El Paso media ignores me. A lot of people still don't know that they have a choice in November.
Right.
They don't have to vote for the same old, because
Right.
in order to get something different, you have to do something different.
Right.
And so, understanding the morality of going back to the country, we need to understand that this country was founded with a very biblical foundation. And when we see our society, like right now, again, the veterans, I hate to jump back and forth,
Right.
but with the veterans, unless we understand what is written in that bill, and I will warn everybody, anything that the Democrats propose right now has a really fancy title. They're really good about giving these fancy titles that make people, build back better. Can we say we're better now?
Oh no.
And then this for the veterans, I forget what the fancy name is. We'll look it up right now. But it's very, oh my gosh, yes, why wouldn't you want to support it? But in reality, it has $40 billion within that bill that nobody has to account for.
Right.
Guess where they want to send that money?
I would say Ukraine, probably.
Illegals. It's for illegals.
Okay.
You as a tax-paying voter, if they put it in front of you and they say, okay, you're working your tail off
Right.
in order to have what you have.
Right.
How about you donate half of your paycheck? And let's give it to the people that are already coming into our country illegally.
Right.
Why don't you give half your paycheck to them? Would that be okay with you?
Of course not.
But why not? See, now we're going back to the moral thing.
Right. Because
Who's going to determine that?
well, as far as for that now, when it comes to what I'm earning for, like you said, when you're trying to earn a living, you're earning a living for yourself and for the ones that you feed, right? The ones that you keep the roof over their heads.
Your
Not so
loved
much,
ones,
yeah,
yes.
not so much people that just want to come in and they give me. Now I'm cool with giving. I have no problem giving, but now that's out of the kindness of my heart.
Exactly.
It's not because I'm being forced to give.
Absolutely. So do you trust the government to have to be wiser and more knowledgeable to determine how to use your hard-earned money?
You see, now when you say trust, that comes into different things, because when you talk about anytime anybody hears the word politician, first thing you think of is the cricket.
Absolutely.
Because they people take lobbying money from PACs and they have to vote one way or other, or else they're not going to get reelected because they need the money to run and put up billboards, put out messages out on Facebook, Instagram, everywhere to put their advertising and get everything out there and get their message out. Look, like you mentioned earlier, Beto O'Rourke. The thing that I hate, besides the fact that I think he's a complete idiot, it should be alarming when you're running for representative in Texas, right?
Right.
And you're making you've raised $54 million, and 46 of those $54 million are from people out of state that have nothing to do with fucking Texas. That should be alarming. And then since he was actually getting backed by Soros,
that should be double alarming.
that should really open your fucking eyes.
Well, you can have money coming in. I don't have a problem with that. What I have, when they ask me, when I'm interviewed, not by the media here, because again, the media here ignores me.
Right.
Why? Porque no les conviene.
Right, because
I'm brown and I'm a Republican. Wait a
right.
minute.
Yeah, because El Paso's 98%, I guess, a blue city. No matter which way they go, the 6 people that vote for El Paso, they're all blue. So it's crazy that because I know, and then Austin's turning into like a little freaking California now.
Absolutely.
And then it's also getting a bunch of homeless people now because everybody's going with that same mentality, moving over here, and they're like, we need to come over here to make it better. But we need to do what we did in California because this shit you guys here do. Like, well, you can't do that. That
Right.
doesn't work. That mentality doesn't work.
Absolutely.
But Austin's always been kind of out there too, though. They're fucking crazy.
Well, they're weird. That's what they say.
yeah,
And they are.
Well, hell, he had Matthew McConaughey from there, so I mean, that's
No, he's from.
But he was
from
a UT
Uvalde.
guy, wasn't he?
Well, yeah, I think he graduated from there,
Yeah.
but he's actually from Uvalde.
Oh, that's another shit. That's another shit show.
I think so. I find it very odd that he starts coming into the political realm.
Mm-hmm. And then that happens.
And then that happens in his hometown, and all of a sudden he has a platform.
But he said he's not running anymore, though, right?
You don't think he will?
I mean,
Look, you
who
said
can you trust?
You
Who the hell
brought
can
out
you
a very
trust?
you brought out a very good point, and I want everybody to understand that the ugly side of politics
Mm-hmm.
and if we can take that word out, politics, it's government, okay?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Government affects every part of your life, whether it's the headphones we have on, obviously the gas we pump into our car. And I just want to remind everybody that on election day in El Paso, gas was $1.58 a gallon.
Damn.
As soon as Biden got, and I use this term very lightly, elected,
Okay.
the markets, of course, the investors, they operate on knowing they invest knowing that they're going to have a return.
Right.
So then the investors hold the investment, automatically prices start going up. And everybody needs to be doing the research of when the gas started going up, because it was not the war in Ukraine that caused the price to go up.
No, that was the way you spin it to that way you could justify the cost.
Well, in our representative, we have her own social media post where she says the president has no control over how much gas costs. But now all of
She's
a
taking
sudden,
all the credit. He's
but now,
taking all the credit.
Now he is, right?
Yeah, he's full of shit.
Yeah. So the reality is a population that is not educated and
Mm-hmm.
doesn't understand, it's easily seduced and persuaded to vote in a different direction.
Right.
When, again, going back to the bill for the veterans,
Mm-hmm.
everything, when I ask them, have you read the bill?
Okay.
And they put a clip of a link of some newspaper,
Mm-hmm.
and I tell them that's not the bill.
Right.
You need to read the bill.
Right.
And so we're operating and voting very ignorantly. And we shouldn't do this because it hits us in our pocketbooks, but it also hits us on our freedoms.
Right. And I know, so like going back to the different, I mean, so we're touching so many different stuffs. Going back to when a bill's presented, I know there was, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head which freaking bill it was. I think it was right before they shut down the government for, what was it, like 4 months back in, a few years back. There is a bill.
You mean when we didn't get paid?
Yeah. Yeah. There was a bill.
I remember that.
And one of the worst things that sucks about that I hate about that shit is that the ones that are saying like our leadership that says, you know what, we're fighting for you guys, but we're not going to pay you. I'm getting paid, but you're not going to get
They're
paid.
getting paid.
But we need you on our sides. Well, first of all, how the hell can I back that? Right? That makes zero fucking sense. But that is politics in a nutshell. But when there was a bill that was coming up and they said, all right, here's the bill to fund so we won't have to shut everything down. But there's these annotations on it and I need it. And I can't remember which congressperson came out. There's like, all right, the bill reads like 2,500 pages and it was given to them like on a Monday morning. They had to vote Tuesday afternoon. There's no feasible way that you're going to be able to read everything because they have so many attachments to it that you can only get Bill A passed if C, D, E, F, G is also in there. And there's no clear standing bill until it's early to the point where people are already fed up. They're like, all right, well, let's table all that other shit and let's just do that. And that's when people, like you said, when you're looking at what the news is giving. 6 companies run all
the
of it.
media worldwide.
6 companies, and the majority of them all are always backing the same side. And that was evident when Trump was running against Biden when Facebook and now all of a sudden our was it the truth the truthers out there that were putting out the fact checkers that were putting out all that shit.
Yes.
And the moment that you had anything, regardless of what it was, if it mentioned Trump, it was the tone down so that way nobody hears it, nobody sees it. But now if it mentioned Biden, to his huge crowds of 8 people that he had to go support his ass
in their vehicles,
in his basement, in his fucking basement when he was half asleep. And it's crazy that I guess, you know, I don't know, maybe I'm old. Is that people? I can't see how people could believe it. I can guarantee
I'm older than you.
I just can't see how people can't see how it's being persuaded one way, and people aren't fighting to say, all right, if we want something better, why can't we get the truth down the line? Because like one of the people that I really liked her stance on was Tolbert from used to be from Hawaii.
Oh right,
And the thing, even though she was Democratic, she was very, from what I had saw, she was common sense, but she was like, wait a minute, I could see how this would work for a Republican. I like this. I don't like that. How about we agree in the middle? And the moment she mentioned something like that, she was a black sheep of the Democratic Party to the point where they ran her out. She had spoken on, like I mentioned earlier, the Joe Rogan show. She had spoken about something just simple that I guess they have like a gym right at the Congress. So before you go to session, you go down and work out. She said she was down there getting a workout on, and she saw somebody from the Republican side go down there, get their workout on, and she's like, "Hey, that's good. You got, you know, congrats, you're getting a good goal or a new personal best or whatever." Somebody from the Democratic side saw that, says, "Why are you talking to them?" It's just like high school, right? Why are you talking to them? They're not the cool kids. She's like, "Well, I'm working out. He's working out. There's no politics." That's all it was. And the moment she came out of there after she showered up or whatever and got up, she was on the shit list. She was done. She said at that point she said she knew she was fucking done. And that's the sad part when it comes to politics, because no matter what you want to do, at the end of the day, if you want to keep your job, just like everybody that wants to keep their job,
right,
you have to fall in line. And if you don't, then guess who's out? And they get the next person to come in. And that's a scary part, like you said, when you have people, fact checkers, which is all bullshit. I think there's an article in the UK that came out about the fact checkers that was just like spam bots out to take down whatever was gaining political uprise or political gain on the Republican side. They shot it down and they brought it down, so that way they could go ahead and filter it out. And it's sad, like I said, people automatically see something on the news, and it's, to them, it's their Bible, right? Going back to that, it's their, that's what they said. That guy, he would never lie to me. You know, who is Tom Brokaw? Why would he lie to me? Well, he wants to stay on TV, right? I mean, he wants to stay on TV, and that's why when you have all these people, and that you have people that come out and, you know, start telling truths about things, they start getting minimized, they start getting villainized, they start getting labeled, taken off, because it's easier to dismiss somebody as a nut as opposed to somebody who might be trying to enlighten you on what's really going on. You know what I mean? And that's just crazy to me. Do you think there might ever be somebody who could actually be in power, as far as maybe a president that is neither red nor blue?
An independent?
Yeah. Do you think that's
America? It's possible.
Do you think it's really possible? In all honesty, and everything what you've seen in the politics. So
one of the things that you got to understand is that we have allowed the system, we the people. If people ask me all the time, well, how do you feel about term limits?
Right.
And I'm like, if you don't like your Congress member, don't vote them in. So if you get a good Congress representative or a senator, they're going to be termed out, and you're going to get rid of them, and Lord knows what's next. So let's look at the entire equation.
Right.
And the power again. This is so important for people to understand that the power is in the people.
Okay.
You don't like your representative, don't vote for them.
Right.
And not only that, Help the other candidate. Tell your friends and family. My family started voting red because I started to notice. I started having the conversations.
Okay.
Everywhere we go, we are now, I mean, in a dire strait in our country.
Right.
If we don't win the House in November, we will continue down this spiral downward direction that it should scare us.
Right.
It really should scare us. And now we have enough data. You can say whatever you want about Trump. And a mí no me cayó el saco.
Okay.
Anything that he said, even when he was a candidate, when he talked about Mexicans,
Right.
and he said it. The reality is it didn't affect me because I'm none of those things.
Right.
And for those of you that don't know, and those of you that do know, my husband just retired from the Border Patrol. And guess what he apprehended? Drug dealers,
Right.
murderers, rapists. They're all.
The spectrum.
Yes. So, of course, not every Mexican is that.
Right.
But the reality is, even now with what we have going on in our southern border, the majority are not Mexican. They're OTMs.
Other than Mexican.
Exactly.
Right.
And so we've got to understand now that we have the 4 years of Trump and now we have the atrocious 2.5 years of Biden. Where do we want to be as a country? Do we want to be begging other countries for oil? Do
Right.
we want to be the laughing stock when we have men dressed as women in places of power?
Right.
Now women are not women enough to be Woman of the Year.
Yeah.
Now
Caitlyn Jenner.
that is ridiculous. You know, we are the laughing stock of the world.
Yeah. So something that you had mentioned. So you had said you're very strong about we need to go ahead and hit the polls and make sure that you believe every vote counts.
Absolutely, it should count.
Okay.
Every legal vote should count.
So do you believe? And I know this is a question somebody had posted because I had asked if you could ask somebody running for office what question. This question was, do you believe that Trump lost? And can you, what was the word that he said? Can you
Back it up.
I know I'm gonna butcher it. That's what I was trying to look for right now. While as you were speaking, I wasn't trying to not pay attention. Can you endorse the fact that he actually lost? Or not endorse it, but can you actually say that, yeah, all right, he lost?
Well, first of all, let's look at the facts. Let's look at the facts. And that's one thing that the Democrats don't want people to do.
Right.
They don't want them to look at the facts. And the fact is that he was extremely ahead at a certain point at night. And in the middle of the night, when nobody was looking, all of a sudden all these votes came in for Biden. You just said Biden was in his basement.
Yeah. Okay, so exactly what
Yes.
what he said was, ask her if she believes Biden won the 2020 election and if she'd certify the election even if Trump loses in 24. That's what.
First of
that's
all,
what the
I
question was.
wouldn't even if I win, I don't have the power to certify the election.
Okay.
What I always stand on, and the chips may fall wherever they fall, is we stand on the side of truth.
Right.
The problem is, you just said it with Tulsi. With Tulsi, it's their way or the highway.
Right.
And you can't have a conversation with them.
Right.
We asked for a debate with Veronica Escobar. She wouldn't give me a debate. And then I specifically asked for a debate in Spanish because I want people in El Paso to understand
Right.
que no es la raza que ella dice que es.
Right.
And let's put things into perspective and in reality. And so what happened in the 2020 election should alarm all of us. And it happens here in El Paso. And it doesn't just happen to Republicans.
Right.
It happens to Democrats. If you go and look for the addresses, and there is affidavits after affidavits after affidavits sustaining and backing the fact that people that vote for them, and I call it and call it whatever you want, I call it the mafia.
Okay.
Because that's how they operate. And if you're not in the Democrat mafia, you will not win, even if you're a Democrat.
Right.
And I've always said, cheating in voting doesn't only affect Republicans. It affects Democrats.
Yeah, that's what happened. What's that old boy's name?
Which one?
From Vermont, Bernie Sanders.
Oh, with
they're
Bernie
like, you're
Sanders.
so good, we're gonna have to ask you to step down.
Well,
Because he was beating Biden. He's
but
like,
I was
yeah.
going to bring him up because he's actually an independent.
Right,
He's-
but he pushes
So-
on a Democrat to get on a bigger platform.
You have to make an alliance.
Right.
And he chooses, unfortunately, he uses the Liberal Party. Why? Because he believes in socialism,
Right.
which I don't even understand why we even use the word socialism. It's communism. And let me tell you that these people that are in Congress, and I'm talking about the AOCs and that didn't have a penny to her name
Yep.
until she became a representative. And now let's look at her worth. Now let's look at, Beto came from middle class, I
Right,
guess.
'cause his dad was a judge, right?
Yes,
Yeah, his
yes,
dad was a
yes.
judge.
He was a county judge, and then, but he married into one of the most wealthy families here in El Paso,
Okay.
and he went from college directly to run for office. How can you tell me that he knows what the working person knows and feels and lives through?
Right.
He's never worked a day in his life.
No, he's been too busy on his bands and his DWIs and all that. good shit.
Exactly. And it goes back to his dad too.
Yeah.
This is family
Generation.
tradition. Yeah.
Right.
This is their family tradition.
Right.
And so the reality is that just because they have a D here in El Paso, people will go pull the lever for them.
Right.
Not understanding that they're actually hurting
Themselves.
themselves. Like the election. I don't want people to think that I'm running away from that question. I want to know the facts, and everybody in America should want to know the facts.
Okay.
But there's a documentary. It's called 2,000 Mules.
Okay.
Have you heard of it?
No.
It's by Dinesh D'Souza.
Okay.
Now, the left will probably say, "Oh yeah, well he's a Republican and Trump pardoned him." And these are cameras that show the evidence of the ballots being stuffed
Right.
in Georgia in the middle of the night. Who votes at 2 a.m?
Nobody that I know. Everybody's
Exactly.
because the votes closed down at 8. So
At 7 here. The voting places close at 7. But because of this whole COVID thing, they started, they had ballot drop boxes. And not just in Georgia, but it's very evident in that documentary.
Okay.
And everybody should want to know the truth.
Right.
Now, if you watch it and you say, no, he's still lost. He's still lost. Okay, but let's get the facts.
Okay.
We always tell our kids, because when they watch something and,
Right.
and they twist it in the media and they say, and the bad cops, and I'm like, whoa.
Right.
Let the investigation unfold and form an opinion when you have all the facts.
Right.
And every American, including every El Pasoan, should want to know that.
You see, but so the reason I was asking that also, because even if the facts come out, say the facts come out in 2032, damage has already been done.
Exactly.
At that point, what does it matter? How can I still, as a voter, how could I feel confident saying, you know what, I'm going to vote here because I know it's going to make a difference, but people in power are going to put whoever the hell they want to put in place to pass whatever, not agenda, because that's going to sound conspiracy theorist, but to push whatever is being pushed at the time. How can people rely that their vote is still worth something, even if something like a rigged election happened, right? How can somebody still have faith in the system? Not so much the people. The people might be meaning well, but how can we still have faith in the system if at the end of the day, whoever A wants to win, A is going to win?
Right. That's why I said cheating in voting
Right.
affects Democrats and Republicans and independents.
Yeah.
And so we should all be okay. Fine. Let's say in El Paso, a group of people said, "You know what? We're Democrats. We're going to vote Democrat." But I really want to know, at a local level, was there any cheating?
Okay.
And so you make it your mission. You organize and you move forward.
Right.
I can guarantee you're going to find cheating in El Paso.
Oh, sure.
You're going to find it. You're going to find people that have addresses that don't exist. You're going to find dead people.
Right.
And one of the actual demographics that is used a lot here for cheating is the elderly.
Okay.
Because you go to a nursing home and things are promised. Things are promised. And then now you have one person voting for all the residents in that nursing home.
Right.
Why? Because there's no signature verification.
Okay.
So what did the Democrats do when at the state level they passed the bill, or before they passed the bill, and it was a voter integrity bill? They even go run away to DC? And it was twofold. It was because of voter integrity, and it was because of abortion. So all these Democrats, they all fly to DC and mount on their high horse and saying, we're taking a stand. What are you taking a stand on?
Right.
Your right to kill somebody? Do you really need to that much to see innocent blood spilled that
Right.
you have to run away? And that's the mountain you're going to die on? And then also on the voting integrity. Every minority should be offended at the fact that Democrats say that minorities can't have an ID.
Right.
Are you able to have an ID?
Well, I have an ID.
I'm sure you have several
I have
IDs.
IDs, but
I have my passport. I have my
Right.
license. I have my license to carry.
Right.
I have my social security card. When you go to school, you have an ID.
right.
How many of us have flown out of El Paso recently and we see these people that are illegally here and all they present are their papers to be able to board a flight? They don't have an ID.
Right.
But going back to the voter integrity, we should all be offended at the fact that the Democrat Party doesn't think that as minorities, we are capable of having an identity. And wouldn't you want every mail-in ballot to be verified, signature verified? Even if your candidate wins, let's say they're all for Veronica and I don't get any of them.
Right.
Wouldn't you as an American want to know that that person that cast that ballot is that person
Legally.
for real?
Actually, that
for
person
real,
is alive. Right.
for realsies. And so we should demand voter integrity. And
Right.
do you think there's no voter fraud here in El Paso? The elections administrator, Lisa Weiss, guess who appointed her?
Who?
Veronica Escobar.
You can't go against your boss. You want to keep your job.
Well, the reality is that she has her tentacles in everything here in El
Right.
Paso. And until we break that power, we are going to continue to see the corruption. And I could go into details, so many. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
So in March of last year, I get a message. And it's people in law enforcement.
Okay.
And they're saying, there was a shooting right next door to Veronica Escobar. And there is the constable put a car in front of her house 24/7. So what does that mean? That car is not in circulation in precinct 1.
Okay.
And that's the precinct that
Right.
put that car. So now the people of precinct 1 have one less car.
Right.
And where is it sitting? In front of Veronica's house. Now, the reason they contacted me was because they wanted El Paso to understand that that's corruption at its finest, because that's not the jurisdiction of the constable.
Right. Because her life is more important than everybody else's.
Exactly.
Right.
But that, even if it was a county person, then I can see it a little more, because the constables are under the county.
Right.
Not under the federal government, and she is a federal elected official. Yes. And so I'm like, okay, where is it? So there goes Sonia and Irene, and we went, and yes, we witnessed. We didn't know where Veronica lived. We knew she lived on that house, and that's on that street. And there's the car. and it's right next to Memorial Park at the end of Copper, right next where it ends.
Okay.
It was in that little street. So we do a live from there. And we say, this car shouldn't be here, blah, 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 blah. That was the first time that Facebook put me in Facebook jail.
you got in trouble.
I got in trouble.
Yeah, that happens a lot around here.
Yes. And so why wouldn't you know? Your tax dollars
Yeah.
are paying for that car.
Yep.
Why wouldn't you know? Why wouldn't you want to know that? So then a week later, because it was my first time, first time offender, we go back, we're back on, but then by then we get told, hey, by the way, you should pass by because the car's gone.
Okay.
So we go back and we show, and what we say is, if it wasn't illegal, if it wasn't corruption, they should have just kept the car right.
Yeah.
There, right?
They should have stayed there.
Yeah, el que nada debe, nada teme.
Right.
But what happened? It was gone.
Public opinion.
It was gone. And people know. So I think that more than anything, if you ask anybody that has been involved in the movement, because more than a campaign, this is a movement.
Okay.
And this is a movement for justice. And it's justice for the common person, like you and me. I don't have friends in high places. I don't rub elbows with lawyers and judges here in El Paso.
Right.
But I can guarantee you within their own community, there's a lot of injustice going on.
Oh yeah. I'm sure.
And I know that people that are listening, somebody fell victim to some of those those judges.
Corrupt officials.
But again, going back to, there's a party that has controlled El Paso for 60 years. It's the Democrat Party.
Right.
I refuse to call it Democratic because there's nothing democratic about the Democrat Party.
So it's a mafia.
It's I call it the mafia. You can call it whatever you want. But at the end of the day, the more we walk in this environment, the more we realize how connected the powers that be are. And who do they hurt? You and me.
Do you think we'll ever get back to common sense? When, like you said, I know we were mentioning earlier, we're making fun of what pronoun and all. It's getting to a point where it's just fucking ridiculous. The other day, Kamala came out, and you know how great of a wordsmith she is. I mean, son of a bitch. She came out and she
knows 3 words.
Yeah,
she repeats them and then starts laughing as she flops.
That laugh fucking kills me. She came out and she said, I am Kamala Harris. I am a her, she pronoun, and I am wearing a blue dress. The fact that that's the start of your opening for any vice presidential speech is flipping ridiculous to me.
It is.
Can we ever get back to just being regular people where we don't have to identify as A, B, C, Z, Ford? I mean, it's gone, like you said, it's gone so crazy. And I know a lot of people would say, we need to go. I remember Portland had a little movement for a while. They had I can't remember what the name of the spot was. They had blocked off like 6 blocks, and I can't remember what they called it. It was a city that they called it.
Yes. What was it called?
Fuck was the name of that city? Either way, they said this is where real Americans live, where we have everything is allowed. Every drug's allowed. Anything goes. And they took over a police precinct, actually. And they said, we don't believe in borders. We don't believe in violence. But the first thing they did was put a border.
Right.
Because they don't want nobody going into the space. So they put a border. There's a bunch of cases of beatings, rapes. People around were just getting shot at. Because
and
there was no laws.
And they were minorities.
And all they really wanted was just to be able to smoke their weed and, whatever other fucking psychedelic they were going to do. And that lasted, what, like 3 weeks before, because I know the government, because even I want to say the senator was like, nope, you got to do it. You got to stand up for your rights. And after a while, I was like, all right, dude, it's getting pretty fucking ridiculous, because the city was like, dude, we especially the police department, there was like, we need our precinct back, because it was downtown. It's the main precinct. And they they gave it, what they did was they basically cut everything outside of it. So whatever supplies you had in there, that's all you're going to have. And the moment somebody, I believe it was PD that tried to go in, and then somebody tried to assault the PD. So when PD, responded to the assault on them or the threat on them, well, now this person needs to go to a hospital. Well, you don't have a hospital in that 4 blocks.
Right.
So what do? So now all of a sudden you're, oh, please help us. I was like, wait a minute, this is what you wanted. This is the life you wanted, and you have it. And now you see it's not that easy, right? Mm-hmm. Again, can we ever get back to normality where that doesn't happen?
Well, first of all, we have to identify normality. And going back to what I asked you, can we legislate morality? Mm-hmm. It's morally wrong to kill people just because they cross into whatever you call a parameter or your fence or whatnot, right? Especially in America, where you don't have any authority. This doesn't happen in the United States. Mm-hmm. This should have been cut at the head. Yes, yep. As soon as it started, it should have been cut and put people in jail, because if you have laws and the laws don't have any consequences, people will step all over the laws.
See, but in that case, even the mayor was saying to do it. Mayor was, because they opened up City Hall and said, take over it.
And what were they? Were they Republican or were they Democrat?
They're fucking crazy.
Well, no, but they're the Democrat Party. Yeah, that's what it's become.
The far left is what they're being referred to.
Well, they don't even identify, like, we have a screenshot again of my opponent, Veronica Escobar, who on her Facebook doesn't even identify as a Democrat. Okay. She identifies as a progressive. Okay. There's nothing progressive about progressives. They take us back to the dark ages. They take us back to where babies used to be sacrificed. They take us back where women were nothing. Going back to what we've touched on all over, where now women are not women enough to be Woman of the Year.
Right. And now, the progressives but that was a big movement, because that's what AOC.
Well, that's what they are. But that's what Veronica identifies herself as. Is Stout, who is going to be the commissioner again, because there's no Republican running against him. He identifies as a progressive. Beto identifies himself as a progressive. Yeah. And so for those people that are Kennedy Democrats, your party has completely abandoned you. The DNC chairman, the Democrat National Committee, has said that in the party there is no room for pro-lifers. So it's not that you have left the party; your party has really left you.
Right.
But if you go back, and this is so important, we need to seek information. We need to seek knowledge and go back to the root. Who founded the Republican Party?
Wasn't it I don't know my mind.
6 black men.
Yeah, because I remember
because Lincoln, they wanted to do away with slavery.
Lincoln was the Republican Party was the party that got rid of slavery, right? Because that's what Lincoln was.
Right. He was. But and then where did the Jim Crow laws come from?
Oh, Democrats.
The Democrat Party.
See, but when you talk about that, no, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
When you talk about that, there's always been the big theory out there that at some point in government time, Democrats and Republicans, the party actually switch roles. That what was the Republican Party back then is now the Democratic Party now.
Absolutely.
But I can't find anywhere, and this is going upon there's I can't remember this girl's name. She was a black history teacher for Harvard, and she came out and said this was all bullshit.
Well, she didn't say it like that.
No, well, in layman's terms.
She's a Christian.
In layman's terms, she said this is all lies. This is all just congregated so that way we could go ahead and these guys could just feel better about themselves and take that away from
I'm trying to remember her name because I read her book.
Yeah, I can't remember her name off the top of my head.
She has really short hair. Yeah. It'll come to me. But yeah, definitely. And she talks about the fact that in the area where she grew up, very heavily black community where people vote for Democrats. It's kind of like the Kim Klacik, right? When she talks about Baltimore, they keep promising all these things and then they don't deliver.
Right.
and they just get wealthier and wealthier. And that's what's happened with El Paso politicians. We have Veronica Escobar, we have Beto O'Rourke, and then we have Anelo, we have Cassandra Hernandez, we have everybody. We're so much in debt now that it's going to take us generations to get out of debt unless we really buckle down and we start electing fiscally responsible people.
Right.
Would you, in your home budget, would you say, hey, you know what, let's go buy a truck. Let's just add another line item to our budget.
Right.
Any sensible person is going to say, wait a minute, where is our finances? How much are we bringing in? You want to make sure you're bringing in more than it's going out. Well, what if we eliminate this? Then we can buy this. Why can't we demand that from our government? You're talking about that bill that was 2,500 pages long. That's what it is. It's a lot of wasteful spending. And this has gone on for a long time.
Yeah, forever.
And when we talk about small government, we're not just talking about the politicians. We're talking about all the administration that actually supports the politicians and supports every agency. The government does not need to be involved in every step of your life.
Right.
One of the big failures of America, and being a born again Christian, it breaks my heart because I think the church has really given up their role, biblical role, to look after the widow and the orphan. And Jesus himself said, you will always have the poor amongst you. So we're never going to, we should try to do better, but as individuals, not as a government. You said it. I should choose who I want to donate to.
Right.
You should. You should. And where does that come from? That comes from your moral compass.
Right.
That comes from your conscience. That's why in our Bill of Rights, we talk about especially the First Amendment, which is the freedom of religion, the freedom of press, and the freedom of assembly. And so why is the freedom of religion so important? Because it's our conscience. Going back to the scenario that I gave you, would you stand and watch a child being dismembered or beat to death in front of you, even by their own parents? You said no.
Right.
Why? Because it's your conscience. It's your moral compass. And that comes from God. Okay. And that's why it's so important to understand the history of our nation. You identify as an atheist, but you're in America. You've benefited from the foundation of our nation, a very biblical foundation. And let me give you an example of when I was in DC one time, because I'm 100% pro-life, more than a pro-lifer. I'm an abolitionist. There was a young man. If you looked at him, he looked like a skinhead. And it was him, and I saw him. He had like a homemade, like with PVC pipes, and it had
pipe bomb?
No.
Plumbing?
Well, he had the PVC, but it was, and I always forget the word. Basically, on one side, it was like a triangle, and he had on one side one banner, on another banner, and another side the other banner. And he's in one of the sides, the banner was a slave that had been whipped, and you saw the scars. Okay. And the title on it was "Not a Human," because they did believe that slaves were not human beings. Right. And then on the other side, it had the Jewish people during the Holocaust. And what did the Germans believe of the Jewish people? That they weren't fully human. Right. And so the title says, "Not a Human." And on the other side, it had all these body parts of aborted babies. And the title was, "Not a Human." So I went up to him and I said, "Who are you with?" And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Yeah, well, are you with a church group? Who are you with?" You know what he told me?
What's that?
He said, "I'm an atheist." Okay. And I said, "Where does this come from?" And he said, everybody knows, or if you don't know, you're going to know right now, that Roe v. Wade passed on January the 22nd, 1973. And so that's when abortions became legal nationally. More than Roe v. Wade, there was a more damaging case that was decided on that day, and nobody talks about it, but it's Doe v. Bolton. Doe versus Bolton.
Okay.
And that's why we had the atrocious over 65 million babies killed in the United States since 1973, victims of abortion. So he says, I was conceived before 1973.
Okay.
And I am here. He said, my sister was conceived in 1974 after Roe v. Wade came into law. And I have no sister. And he, as an atheist, was advocating to do away with Roe v. Wade. And he said it with deep hurt.
Right.
And so where does that come from? It comes from your moral compass. It comes from your conscience. And as a God-fearing human being, I know that God is who gives us the moral compass.
Right. Now, one thing, so I'm seeing what you're, like I said, I see what you're saying, but it comes off a little bit, and this is something like, this is something that happens usually with people who are really religious, is that you're saying, well, like you said right now, I've benefited from, the God, Christian, whatnot, but people, so basically, a lot of Mexicans, right, or if their parents are Catholic, the kid is automatically Catholic, right?
Right.
They have no say so until they're old enough to make an adjustment or their own opinion, or as an adult to go ahead and start looking around to see where they're at. So when somebody starts talking about church, and there's more than just one religion in the world, people start getting put off from other people when they say, what's because of God, like you said, God is this, God is that. And it makes them, it sounds almost snobbish to where people are like, wait a minute, you're saying just because I don't believe in God, I'm less than what you think. So that's why I was asking the question, because a lot of people, especially nowadays, like you said, because now even like within the Catholic Church, where one of the huge things was that if you're gay, you are beneath the church. You're not worth their time. You're basically you're the enemy. And now that the Catholic Church lost so many people, they're accepting of, now gays are cool. Gays are welcome. We love them. And it's to the point where if somebody isn't that same religion, automatically, because of two different beliefs, if I don't have your beliefs, sometimes people believe like, if you're an atheist or if you're Catholic, you're not part of what I'm thinking. Well, I'll just think for you. And it comes off kind of, I don't want to say rude, but it comes off kind of asshole-ish, I guess you could say. You know what I mean? Because people are like,
I don't know what you mean.
Well, if you don't like what I'm saying, if you don't agree with what I'm saying, where I'm getting this from, then I'll just make up your mind for you. And it's like, well, wait a minute. That's when people start pushing back a little bit and saying, well, why are you going to make up your mind for me if that's not what I'm thinking? Because that's what I was saying. Just because some things are a certain down the line, right? If I'm Christian, I can't do this, I can't do that. But like my grandma was heavy Christian, right? She wouldn't allow my uncle to go watch movies because she didn't know what was going to come out in the movies. So movies were evil. If you watch movies, you're an evil person. It's like, well, wait a minute.
Some of them are evil.
Yeah, some of them are, but not all of them, right? So we can't just put everything in one box and say, all right, they're all evil, right? Because there's cartoons that fall into that. There's, there's stuff like that. We can't just put everything in one ball. And that's why I think, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, the reason the U.S. or America even started was because we were getting away from people telling us what religion we had to be when we were in Great Britain or England or wherever the hell we came from, right? We ran away
Well, I don't
because
think you and me came from England.
right. But America came because they were being told this is what you have to be. So they didn't want that, so they came over here to set up their own thing. So that's why I was saying, shouldn't we separate church and state for the fact that that's what we originally got away from?
No, that's not what we got away from. What they got away from, the Pilgrims. Actually, what they got away from, and again, this is why it's so important to seek knowledge. So the King of England wanted to get a divorce. And in the Catholic Church, you couldn't get a divorce.
Okay.
And as a king, in England, they would think that the king was the head not only of government, but also of the church. And so what he did for his own convenience to get a divorce was to actually form his own church.
Okay.
That's what the Church of the Anglican Church comes from. But then not only did he say, okay, now I'm Anglican, now everybody has to be Anglican.
Okay.
And so what they sought was, and it was the Protestants, it wasn't the Catholics, it was the Protestants. They didn't agree with the Anglican Church, so they came to the New World seeking freedom of religion. They didn't come seeking freedom of religion. Freedom from religion, but freedom of religion, to be able to worship God. And so we need to understand where all this is born and where it has come from and why it was so important to even have in our founding documents. Because if I'm not imposing my religion on you. Now, for those that think that Christians hate gays, you cannot sustain that with facts.
Okay.
Now, whether you agree with it or you don't, Christians are the real Christians. I'm talking about born again. I'm not talking about churchgoers.
Okay.
I'm talking about born again Christians who are called to love everyone. Now, do we love the sin? No. And because we know that there is a hell and there is a heaven, why wouldn't we, out of love, want to explain and share the truth with everybody?
Okay.
And so, again, going back to the fact that there is a creation, including you and me, we didn't come out of nowhere.
Right.
Something created us. And that's the creator, and that's God. And why do you have a conscience? Because God instilled it in your heart. Anybody that meets a true Christian will know that they are the caring people, that they are the people that want to do no harm.
Okay.
They are the leaders in justice, not injustice.
Okay.
Two separate words.
Space.
Yes, for justice.
Right.
Because God, in His own scripture, in the Bible, He calls us to love justice.
Okay.
And so, whether you're an atheist, whether you're a gay person, or you choose to live in a homosexual lifestyle, if I see an injustice, I will not just stand around and let it happen. But there's nothing more unjust right now in our country than abortion. Because you're attacking the most defenseless of a being in our land,
Right.
and tearing them into pieces.
Right.
There has been videos and everything else where people are advocating for save the eagle eggs.
Okay.
And they ask people to sign the petition. Absolutely, nobody should be harming the eagles. And then they say, okay, now this petition is to stop killing babies in the womb. Oh no, every woman has a right to make the decision. You're telling me an eagle egg has more value than a human being?
Right.
What do you think? Do you think a human has more value, or an eagle egg has more value?
I think nature needs to just take its course.
But you're not telling me, should we defend the eagle egg or should we defend the baby?
See, because I'm not at the point where I'm there to do. I can't defend either one. That's not up to me.
You
to
just said
defend.
it, though. You just said
Right,
that
now-
you wouldn't stand for a
Right,
child being killed.
Yeah, so if I'm
What-
seeing a child being done that in front of you, then yes, that's you step in just.
So
to,
it's
hey,
okay that they do
get-
it. Let's say she kills them inside their house. It's okay then?
What do you mean? What do you mean it's okay? I'm not.
Is it okay to
no,
for
but
the
but
mom?
the question wasn't if it's okay. The question was if I would do anything. If they kill him inside the house, I
No, but
can't
you
do
said-
anything.
no,
right?
but
'Cause
you said you can't.
Right,
No,
but
no,
the
no,
original question was, if I see it in
How
front
are
of
you
me,
gonna stop it?
Am I going to stop it? Yes, but now if that person does it outside of my range, and I
Yes,
can't
yes.
do anything.
Does it make it okay?
No, neither way did I say it was ever okay.
Well, that's what I'm asking you
Right.
now. Is it okay for that
No.
mom to kill the
No.
baby? So then why wouldn't you stand up for a baby that is defenseless in the womb of their mother?
Because again, that's not my.
So then you don't value life.
Well, it's not that I don't value life. It's just that that's not my life to say one way or the other. It's just like it's not. Just like when it comes to like child support, a guy is like, if it's your child, regardless of what it is, you're paid child support whether you see him or not.
Right.
You can't say, well, hey, I've never seen that kid. Well, either way, you're paying.
Right.
So that's not my place to say one way or the other. That's on the mom. If that's what she's gonna do, that's what she's gonna do. Because that's not my thing. That's not.
But that's the fallacy of the message.
But that's not going to affect me.
It's not going to affect you.
That's not on me. No.
So it's okay then. Then it's okay.
As far
what you're
as
saying,
for,
it's okay if a mom kills her baby in the womb.
if that's what she wants to deal with, and she could live with it. She
But where
could do
will
what
it
she wants
stop?
to do.
But where will it
it's-
stop?
You see, but it's just like saying, if I'm okay with somebody who, like you said, commits murder. Well, I'm not okay with it, but what can I do? What am I going to do? You know what I mean?
But we have laws that are against
Okay.
murder. We
Right.
have laws that have consequences.
Right. So if we have laws already, it doesn't matter what I think is okay.
But where does it come from?
It's the laws that
But
are
where does that
there.
come from? Where does that come from?
What
Comes
is
from
what,
your
from the laws?
from your moral compass.
Okay, but
You saying no, it's not okay. Even speeding. Let's step away from
Yeah.
abortion.
Mm-hmm.
Even speeding. Somebody passes you at 90 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh my gosh, I'm just waiting for them to be wrapped around that next pole.
right. I was just like, whoa, that sucks, poor dude. That
Yeah.
dude better be okay. You better be slowed down or
But then
calm down.
But then what happens if they hit somebody else?
But then he hit somebody else.
And what
That's
happens with that
beyond-
person?
That's
And
beyond
what
my-
happens? What happens with that person?
I don't
But
know.
is it right or is it wrong? I'm not saying you can
Is-
stop it. Is it right or is it wrong?
The act itself
Yes.
of him speeding.
Yes. And then
You
it's
see, so-
it's
okay,
speeding.
but then
You're
when-
breaking the law.
Right. So if you're breaking a law that's already in, if it's already there, set in law, if you're breaking a law, then that's not right because you're breaking the law. But
Right.
it's just like saying, well, jaywalking's a law. So if you jaywalk, is that wrong?
Well, it should be.
Should be.
It's a law. We
So,
should
so every-
abide by the laws.
So then when abortion was legalized, then it's okay then.
No,
because there was already a law though.
well, there's a law,
Right.
but then you go back to the moral compass.
Okay, but
You go back to the moral compass. Is it right to kill somebody?
right, but like I said, so when we're going by, if there's a law and they're breaking the law,
There's unjust laws.
right? There's unjust laws. There's all kinds of different
Okay, so
laws
why do we have laws?
to keep people in constraint to a certain degree, so you don't have anarchy.
To protect us, right? Mm-hmm. To protect us.
Right.
So when you have a law that doesn't protect somebody,
Mm-hmm.
is it a just law?
When I have a law that doesn't protect somebody,
Or that doesn't protect people? Because the laws are in place to protect human beings.
Mm-hmm. correct?
So if the law goes against protecting a human being,
Mm-hmm.
is it a wrong law or is it a good law?
Doesn't matter what law it is. If it's a law, it's a law.
No, we have good
'cause-
laws
but-
and we have bad laws.
right. Understandable. But if you break whatever law, whether it's good or bad, is there not consequence?
Well, and I agree with you. There
You know what I
has
mean?
to be
Yeah,
consequences.
there's consequence if you break any law, regardless
Right.
if you, because some people could say, well, and you're seeing this in California now, stealing is bad, right? Because you're
Right.
breaking a law. But as long as you steal under, what's the limit out there?
$700. Yeah.
It's okay.
It's okay. So you just
So
take,
it's just like, okay, well, wait a minute now.
let me go 3 times.
Right. So now that's where you get into the little muddy of the whole thing, right?
Well,
There-
is it a
there's
just
different
law
laws.
though? But is it a just law? Even that one, you brought it up.
Right.
Even that, is that a good law?
Oh, it's a stupid law, but it's a law nonetheless.
Exactly. Why?
But it's a law that's enforced nonetheless.
But why is it a bad law? Because it doesn't protect people. Again, going back to what Winston Churchill said, in order for there to be a government, there must be a people who want to be governed. Why do you have government from the beginning? Any civilization, whether you're in the Indies, whether you speak a dialect, whether you've seen anybody outside your village, every village, every people, every group of people always have parameters.
Right.
Those are laws. They're governments.
Right.
Now, where does the stealing law come from?
The what law?
The stealing.
The stealing
that
law.
You shouldn't steal.
That's provided by whatever the state comes through with.
Comes from the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not steal.
Unless it's under $700.
Exactly.
Unless it's under $700. Again, there's that little gray area which makes 0 cents.
But it doesn't make it a good law.
No, right.
Why? Because it hurts
Right.
people. Going back to abortion. If it's a law that doesn't protect people, that hurts people,
Right.
and there's nothing more hurtful than causing death,
Right.
harm to cause death, is it a good law?
Right. But what if it's under $700? Is that?
The baby's
that's
life
where
is
you
not
go.
worth $700.
You see, that's like I
And
said.
that's our moral
That's where
compass.
they keep. That's where the argument will come. Well, what if? There's always a what if.
The
right?
what
There's
ifs,
always
we
a-
will never
no,
end with
no
the
matter
what ifs.
what. No matter what. Well, what if the sky isn't blue tomorrow? I mean, there's always those what ifs. So no matter what you do, it's always the circle of life, like the
Right.
light, like Mufasa and Lion King and all that. It's a circle of life. So I know, like, I got so many more things to ask you about.
I think we're gonna have to come back.
Yeah, that's
'cause I'm
why-
getting
yeah.
so sleepy.
Yeah,
now.
no, that's what I was
We
going
had
to say.
a full day.
We're already an hour and a half into
my
it.
gosh.
We both had a long day with work and whatnot. Before we sign off, tell the people why we should vote for you and not for Escobar, and what you're going to do to make us better here.
Well, the reality of things is what I had said before. If you want something different, you have to do something different. And this falls on the voters.
Right.
You have to vote different people into office. Unfortunately, the people that have been in power have made a lot of promises, and they have not fulfilled them. One of the things that I know that her commercial in 2020 was, I brought $10 million to El Paso. Going back to, there's no such thing as government funding. If you want to keep more of your hard-earned money, then I would appreciate an opportunity to serve the people of El Paso. I have no special interest. It's important that people understand the government process.
Right.
If you want to know who has donated to my campaign, I encourage you to go and look at my FEC report.
Okay.
It's fec.gov.
Okay.
But if you're going to look at mine, I invite you to look at hers
Hers.
as well.
Right.
And let's compare. I have not raised the amount of money that she has. Why? Because I don't have a political career. I have a career in the private sector. I was a realtor I still have my license for over 20 years. I am an educated, hardworking mother, wife, grandmother, native of El Paso. And I do know how government works. And one of the things that I would do on day one is give the power back to the people and bring a lot of awareness into our community. It's important that everybody in El Paso understands how our government works, not only at the federal level,
Right.
but at the state and the local level.
Right.
Because I can guarantee you that once you start becoming more aware and understanding just the facts, forget parties. Let's just look at the facts.
Right.
And I ask you a question that everybody has to answer. Are you better off here in El Paso? Because for 60 years, Democrats have been in control.
Right.
We have seen the industries leave El Paso. And when you don't have competition of industries, then what happens? The wages go down. And who suffers?
The common
America.
people.
the common people. Just right now, we're going through horrendous records inflation.
Right.
What have they said? Oh, we gave the senior citizens Social Security a 5.1% increase. We are now over almost at 10% inflation. How can you say you're doing good for the people, especially the most vulnerable of our communities?
Right.
Medicare just went up also.
Okay.
So in reality, that hike that they gave you at 5.1
cover that?
is not even going to cover it. The gentleman that was telling us about Medicaid was basically saying that the increase was 12%.
Jesus.
So you're already in the hole more than
2%,
100%.
right.
More than 100%. And again, going back to the economy, I want to remind everybody that on election day, the gas here in El Paso was $1.58. Right now, they're saying, "Oh, what a wonderful thing that it's at $3, $3.20, whatever." It's still more than half of what it was in November of 2020. So you got a decision to make. What do you want? You want what we have right now, or do you think it's time for a change? And I hope that the voters trust me with their vote.
Okay. And where could the voters get more information about you as far as for your
Platforms?
your platforms, your so they could view and see either they want to go ahead and donate to you, or as well as to see where you stand on all the hot topics.
Well, you're going to have to give me probably till Sunday, because just last weekend my website was hacked.
No kidding.
No.
Soros.
You think
It was Soros.
You would think, I still consider myself a nobody. And I'm like thinking, who would want to attack this little Mexican American abuelita in El Paso? But they are. They're after us now. So if you go to ireneforcongress.com, what you're going to see is a landing page for donations. Give us until Sunday. They're working on it, because we don't have just any silly old website. We want to give the public an information to understand what is the most important for them and where do I stand on it. We can go back. You asked the question, can we ever go back to common sense? Yeah, to common sense. We can go back. That's the exciting thing about the way our system is built here in America. Remember, there has never in the history of the world ever been a country like America. True. And remember that the power lies on the people. Yes, we have representatives and we elect them democratically, but we are a republic. We are not a democracy. So there's a lot of knowledge that I hope that we bring to El Paso, because I don't want my people, la gente del Paso, to suffer under this regime that we are under right now.
Awesome. Again, Irene for Congress, Irene Armendariz-Jackson. Time for change. Your Instagram is that, right? Irene for Congress?
Irene for Congress.
That just changed, didn't it? Because I just...
Yes, no, it is.
Did that get hacked too?
No, it's Irene. Well,
am I talking to the wrong person?
I had Irene for Congress border candidate, but I took the border candidate just because it's long. And when people ask me, what's your Instagram? Irene for Congress.
It's a lot.
Yes.
So that's coming. The election's coming up November 8th. So if you want to see change, if you're tired of the blue that we have here in El Paso, if you're tired of the bullshit, check out something different. Hit the red. Give Irene a shot. You need to come back because there's a lot more stuff we need to talk about. Like I said, it's only an hour and it's almost 2 hours, and we still got a lot more. I'm sure there's. I mean,
you know what I would love? I would actually love for people to send you questions. Okay. I would love to have a time for answering questions.
Okay.
Because it's a very 20,000 foot view, and if there's something that I want people to know about me, is that I'm just like them.
Okay.
I'm just a citizen that is tired of the way things are and want to bring change. But I want to know what's important to the community. Okay. We have the polls, we have the data, but I want to know from my own people of El Paso what's important. El pueblo.
There you go.
Yes.
Again, if you guys get a chance, Irene for Congress on the IG, wait for her website to come back up. Should be back up Sunday if it doesn't get hacked again. If Soros doesn't get his hands on it. Again, Follow her. Give everybody an opportunity. The fact that we're able to have an open conversation like this, first of all, I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Because I know it's a lot of the times if I'm not following a certain script with certain people get pissy. And that's when everything goes straight to hell. But the fact that you're open and you're welcoming into it, I appreciate that. I thank you. I wish nothing but the best for you. Hopefully something good happens for you in November.
For all of us.
But we need to have you back before November. Now I'll try to get Veto on here too. And then,
do it.
And then I have boxing gloves. I have. we'll have a bottle. We'll go through a bottle of tequila. And we'll see where the truth stands at the end of that.
Well, I don't drink, so.
It's gonna be an early night then. So till next time, guys. Remember, if you want to see something different, get out of the blue. Go for red. Irene for Congress. Till next time, deuces.